I was a tribute maiden sent from a foreign land, carefully pleasing Caden Shinuan for 5 years. On the bed, I exhausted every trick, even filling the dimples of my back with wine to delight him. In the 5th year, after drinking too much contraceptive medicine, I finally became pregnant and was about to share the joyous news with him. Then I heard his cold, detached voice as he instructed his subordinate, in 2 days, send Mu Yan to the lowest ranking military brothel to reward the 3 armies. The subordinate was startled, disbelieving, but isn't she the one the king favors most? Besides, she's already with. Before the subordinate could inform Caden Shinuan of my pregnancy, he impatiently cut him off. His icy voice softened slightly. Wan Wan dislikes her and won't let me touch her. I must do something to please my little wildcat. The little wildcat in Caden Shinuan's words was a newly arrived tribute maiden, wild and stubborn, who wounded him on her first night, serving him, yet faced no punishment. I touched my lower abdomen and went to the alchemy workshop, speaking softly. Are you in need of a test subject for the elixir? I am willing to take the elixir of oblivion. The scorching heat of the alchemy workshop fell silent for a moment. The elixir of oblivion, as its name implies, makes one forever forget the person they wish to erase from memory. This elixir was newly concocted by the alchemist, and no one knew its potential side effects. Thus, no one was willing to try it. I was the first, and the only one. The alchemist struggled to form his words, stammering, Lady Mu, does the king know about your intention to test this elixir? His concern was not unwarranted. Among all the tribute consorts, I was the one most skilled in vying for favor and pleasing Caden Shinuan. In the grand hall, I could dance barefoot with bells, twirling under the lustful gazes of all the men. The flimsy fabric revealed vast stretches of snow, white skin, concealing nothing. With a graceful turn, I would sway into Caden Shinuan's embrace, hook my arms around his neck, and seductively offer my lips, enticing him into pleasure. Only at this moment does the chilling darkness fade from the eyes of the man on the throne. He lowers his head to return my kiss. His fingers trace the curve of my waist. Rough fingertips and callous palms bear the marks of his reign. A tingling sensation sparks waves of dangerous shivers, like a master bestowing fleeting favor upon a pet. Part careless indulgence, part scorching desire. In 5 years, I have been the concubine who lingered longest by his side. Yet still merely a concubine, not even granted a formal title. The king knew. I lied without flinching. 2 days later, he sent me to reward the 3 armies. He never expected this lowly tribute maiden would still remember him. The alchemy workshop grew deathly still. As the elixir of oblivion was handed to me, the alchemist suddenly clenched it tighter. His expression conflicted. Lady Mu, are you truly certain? This elixir is newly forged. There is no antidote. Once consumed, there will be no turning back. You will never recall the one you wish to forget. My fingertips icy cold. I calmly accepted the elixir of oblivion from the alchemist. I wish to forget Caden Shinuan, and I will never regret it. The chill, bitter pill slid down my throat. I revealed a smile of relief that no one could understand. Yet the potent medicinal taste still made me retch uncontrollably. As soon as the pill was swallowed, I clutched my lower abdomen, cold sweat dripping, my face drained of color. The alchemist rushed forward in a panic to check my pulse, then froze abruptly and shouted at me, Lady Mu, you are with child. How could you hide this and take the elixir of oblivion? I stood quietly, enduring the pain as I softly spoke. The king has no need for a child born from a tribute maiden sent from a foreign land. Every nation conquered by Caden Shinuan sends noble women as tribute maidens. Here, tribute maidens are little more than playthings for the bed, tools to satisfy his desires. Then, discarded at will, he released my wrist, sighing deeply. The day you forget the king, this child will vanish along with him. I lower my gaze to my abdomen, a slight, rounded curve, barely 3 months along, hidden beneath the loose ruchuan, completely unnoticeable. No wonder it had gone unnoticed for so long. Caden Shinuan still didn't know how audacious I'd been, overstepping my place, carrying his child. Truthfully, In the 5 years I'd served by his side, I had always kept to my station, never imagining I would conceive. Caden Shinuan was always so rough, so merciless with me. After taking his pleasure, he would kick me aside, forcing me to kneel by the bed to attend to him. His calloused hand gripped my chin, tilting it up, his voice hoarse and icy. Remember your place. You know full well what happens to those who overreach. Mu Yen, I met his gaze, dark and untouched by moonlight, then hurriedly lowered my head, trembling faintly. Yes, I knew better than anyone. Once, a tribute maiden failed to drink the contraceptive brew, clad only in a robe. His honey-toned, broad chest still marked with faint traces of passion. He ordered her dragged away and her tongue torn out. After that, I never saw her again. Caden Xuanyuan's fingers brushed my cheek, his lazy demeanor carrying an indescribable, peculiar tenderness. Mu Yen, don't disappoint me. You've been with me the longest, and you're still the most pleasing in bed. I don't want to personally order your disposal. Whatever slight favor he showed me was only because he hadn't grown tired of me. There was no extra emotion involved. After it was over, the palace servants brought contraceptive soup, and the bath was filled with warm water, waiting for me to cleanse myself inside and out. He never allowed any tribute maiden by his side the chance to conceive. Bowl after bowl of contraceptive soup was forced down my throat. After drinking until I felt numb, I could even detect a faint sweetness in it. The thought of getting pregnant first crossed my mind 3 months ago. On Caden Xuanyuan's bed, wine pooled in the small of my back as I lay prone on the couch. I'd held this position for so long my knees ached, yet I dared not move an inch. Caden Xianyuan sat behind his sandalwood desk, calmly reviewing memorials. The frosted glass lampshade softened the lines of his sharp nose, casting a faint shadow. He was not a man given to debauchery. Otherwise, he would not have conquered nation after nation, expanding his dominion by force. The Baylor Kingdom was one of them. 5 years ago, after its defeat, I was sent to him as one of the tributes. I still remember Caden Xuanyuan's aloof glance, his noble, cold eyes showing not a ripple of emotion. He kept me, yet forgot me. Caden Xuanyuan's harem held dozens of tribute maidens, yet his monthly visits were few and far between. Nights in the palace were desolate and silent, stretching on as if without end. Every time Caden Xianyuan destroyed a kingdom, he would execute one tribute maiden. Left among the last dozen, I learned to vie for favor, seducing him with bewitching allure, boldly intruding into his bath. Like a water nymph emerging from the depths, I wrapped silk around his shoulders, climbed his taut waist, and pressed my lips to his. With ever-changing tricks, I became the woman who lingered longest in his bed and is most favored, but never loved. Those palace maids whispered that I was wanton and shameless, a vixen who seduced the king. I paid them no mind. The only thing I cared about was the Baylor Kingdom. That night, scouts delivered news of the war with the Baylor Kingdom. Even as I became a gift upon his bed, Caden Xianyuan showed no exception. He had declared war on the Baylor Kingdom. My heart clenched violently. I hurriedly lowered my head to hide my flushed, burning eyes. The wine pooled in the hollow of my back felt icy, its chill making my teeth tremble faintly. On the bed, I clung to him and begged with utter humility. Your Majesty, I'll obey you willingly. You may do with me as you please. Just spare the Baylor Kingdom. Someone of my status had no right to bargain with him. Perhaps 5 years of favor had made me forget my place. He abruptly rose, his gaze cold and dark, swallowing all light. This is not for a tribute maiden to question. The Baylor Kingdom gave you to me. You have no ties to them now. You are mine, your life and death in my hands. That night, I was driven from the bed early, yet a bold idea took root in my mind. Once begun, it could not be stopped. From then on, each night, I used my fingers to induce vomiting, expelling the contraceptive brew, nor did I cleanse myself thoroughly in the bath. At last, I secretly conceived this child who should never have existed. I intended to use this child to beg for a path to survival for the people of Baylor. But it was useless now. Caden Xianyuan had a new tribute maiden by his side, Vivian Lynn. She was unlike all the tribute maidens sent before her, unafraid and unflinching in Caden's presence. Her clear, contrasting eyes held a stubborn vitality. She made no attempt to hide her hatred for Caden, like a wild, untamable kitten ready to pounce and bite him at any moment. On the very first night Vivian Lynn appeared, Caden cast me aside. It was the first time in 5 years that he had chosen another to share his bed. Lying on the bed, I no longer had to endure his rough handling, his emotionless thrusts, or even drink the bitterly stomach-churning contraceptive brew. Yet I felt unaccustomed and utterly sleepless. Caden Shenyuan slept with sharp alertness. The slightest rustle would make his cold eyes snap open, hand reaching for his sword. He never allowed any woman to stay the night. Only, when he was in a good mood, would he permit me to linger on the bed a little longer. Indulging me, he let me rest my head on his arm, half embracing me, allowing me to briefly lie against his broad, solid chest, close to the beat of his heart. Gazing at the lowered silk curtains, I felt a creeping unease. Time always changes a person, subtly and inevitably. I had grown accustomed to being his submissive bed slave, yielding to his every demand. Perhaps from the moment I was sent here, I knew clearly no one would come to take me back. I had to either learn to please Caden Shenyuan or die by his hand. On Vivian Lin's first night serving him, the commotion was loud and unrestrained. The palace guards and attendants swiftly gathered at Caden Shenyuan's bedchamber. The newly arrived tribute maiden had concealed a dagger and stabbed the king. By the time I reached the bedchamber, the bloodstains on the floor had already been cleaned. Caden's honey-toned chest was wrapped in a bandage of white cloth. Vivian Lynn was forced to her knees, held down by guards, tears welling in her eyes, yet her head held high with defiance. Caden Shenyuan, if you think I'll serve you in bed, you're dreaming. I'd rather die than let you touch me and defile me. I covered my stomach. The faint lingering scent of blood in the air still made me nauseous. Everyone held their breath for Vivian Lynn. A disobedient tribute maiden dies lighter than a fallen leaf, her bones never to be found. Yet Caden rose and walked to her, signaling the guards to release their hold. His voice, cold and deep, lifted with intrigue. Won't let me touch you? Do you know how much effort the women here would put in just to keep me? I stood at the back of the crowd, my heart clenched and released, blood rushing to my cheeks. Caden Shenyuan was talking about me. Vivian Lynn was like a defiant, untamed prey, rare enough to spark his desire for conquest. At first, Vivian Lynn was locked in the water dungeon, nearly frozen to death, yet still refusing to yield. But it was Caden Shenyuan who panicked first, personally carrying her out, making an exception to place her on his own bed, and having her treated. Later, Caden Shenyuan chose to coax her into happiness, making quite a spectacle of it. He took her out of the palace to go horseback riding. He set off fireworks for her for several nights, and even exempted her country from its annual tribute because of Vivian Lynn. Everyone knew the king had taken a liking to a tribute maiden, pampering her like no other. When the news reached me, the hand I had been resting on my belly dropped, and a pale smile touched my lips. 5 years of time couldn't compare to Vivian Lynn's few months. She didn't need to do anything, didn't need to grovel and please Caden Shenyuan, yet effortlessly possessed everything I begged for, but could never obtain. Those in the rear palace had long despised my tactics to ensnare Caden Shenyuan. See me cast aside, their mockery never ceased. After clinging to the king for 5 years and exhausting every trick, you still couldn't compare to Miss Vivian's 3 months. Are all women from the Baylor Kingdom as shameless as you, willing to do anything to please a man? Facing their taunts, I wasn't particularly heartbroken. I simply understood that I had gambled and lost, utterly and completely defeated. This child had lost its value. Caden Shenyuan wouldn't show an ounce of mercy toward me because of its existence, nor would he spare the Baylor Kingdom for this child's sake. I closed my eyes, and scalding tears fell upon the back of my hand. The day after taking the elixir of oblivion, I suddenly felt an unprecedented sense of calm. A maid from Vivian Lin's side sought me out, her demeanor haughty and condescending. "Beauty Moo, my mistress has been in low spirits lately, hearing of your unparalleled dancing skills. She wishes to see you perform." She was waiting to see resentment on my face. After all, I had once enjoyed Caden Xuanyuan's exclusive favor. To her disappointment, I nodded quietly. In the past, I might have felt a hint of embarrassment and sorrow, but because of that pill, none of it remains now. I calmly changed into the dancer's attire and entered the palace, where both Vivian Lin and Caden Xinyuan were present. Caden Xuanyuan's sharp, hawk-like gaze swept over my slightly protruding belly. He frowned and asked in a low voice, "Why have you gained so much weight so suddenly? It looks unappealing. Your waist has thickened, affecting your dance posture." It won't satisfy Vivian Lin. Vivian Lin sat on his lap, like a precious and elegant Persian cat. Caden Xuanyuan's recent partiality toward her had smoothed her edges, making her willing to be tamed. Vivian Lin's eyes flickered as she raised a meaningful smile. "Could it be that Lady Mu is with child?" Caden Xianyuan jolted abruptly, his gaze scrutinizing, cold as a blade, fixed on my abdomen. "Pregnant? For how long? When did it happen?" Caden's slender fingers held the wine cup, his long lashes glinting with a cold light. His tone was deceptively gentle, yet it sent chills down my spine. His firstborn would not be born by a lowly tribute maiden. I drew a breath, glanced down at my stomach, and said in the calmest tone I could muster, "The king himself watched me drink the contraceptive brew each time. How could there be a child? It's merely that I've gained weight recently. My belly has grown." Caden showed little reaction to my explanation, only issuing a command after a long silence. "Then dance." I danced in the grand hall, seeking to please Vivian Lin in his embrace. Vivian glanced in my direction, tugged down her collar to reveal a snowy curve, and melted bonelessly into Caden's arms. She took a sip of wine and offered her crimson, alluring lips to his. Caden Xianyuan did not take it. Instead, casting a glance in my direction, I swayed slightly on my feet, but continued dancing, as if utterly indifferent to whatever he and Vivian Lin were doing. Obedient as a delicate puppet, the elixir of oblivion was taking effect. It had already made me forget every moment with Caden Xianyuan, including those nights of passionless, desperate entanglement. He grew increasingly unfamiliar to me, until one day he would be erased forever, beyond recall. "My king, you've tamed me already. Won't you take me now?" Vivian Lin cooed, her tone shifting from stubborn to sweetly pleading. Caden Xianyuan gripped her waist, shifting their position, his gaze dark and unreadable. I stopped dancing. I knew what would happen next. 5 years of intimacy, even without love, had bred too much familiarity. There was a crimson mole on his chest that turned vividly red when he was aroused. Now, as Caden Xuanyuan's chest heaved, that very mole glowed with intense, almost dripping brilliance. He seemed furious, his gaze sharp as a blade and cold as ice. "Planning to stay and watch?" Caden Xianyuan laughed mockingly. The darkness in his eyes was suffocating, making it hard to breathe. Understanding dawned on me, and I hastily rose to make way for him and Vivian Lin. This humble one takes her leave. But I had barely turned around, not even taken a step. Caden Xuanyuan's wine cup smashed against the door, shattering into pieces and nearly cutting my ankle. "Get out. Serve outside," barefoot and clad only in a thin dance dress. I stood outside the palace. The late autumn night wind was bitingly cold, and a layer of white frost coated the stone tiles. The chilly wind brushed my face, reddening the tip of my nose, and for a moment, I felt like crying, yet I also felt lost, my heart hollow and empty. Vivian Lin seemed to deliberately raise her voice for me to hear, seductive to the bone, enough to make one's cheeks burn. A long time passed before the sounds finally ceased. "Get in here." Caden Xuanyuan's command was hoarse and icy. His voice carried clear displeasure. I briefly lost myself in thought. Caden Xianyuan was always at his most agreeable after being satisfied, appearing aloof and enigmatic, yet easier to negotiate with than usual. It was only during such moments that I dared to boldly plead for the Baylor Kingdom. I lingered at the palace entrance for a long while before entering, afraid the familiar scent would make me vomit and expose everything. The great hall lacked that musky fragrance, and I breathed a sigh of relief. A palace maid handed me the contraceptive brew, instructing me to pass it to Vivian Lynn. The all too familiar odor lingered at the tip of my nose. Vivian Lynn glanced at the bowl, clinging to Caden Xuanyuan's arm as she whined softly. Your Majesty, the medicine is too bitter. I don't want to drink it. His gaze swept indifferently over the medicinal soup I held, his voice softer and more indulgent than I'd ever heard. If you don't wish to drink it, then don't. That bowl of contraceptive brew, so bitter no amount of candied fruit could mask its taste. In the end, Vivian Lynn did not touch a single drop. I carried it out and poured it away. The dark, concentrated liquid scattered in the pond water, reminding me of when Caden Xuanyuan doted on me. Those months he spent night after night in my bed. Back then, I couldn't see my place clearly and foolishly believed I could be the exception. Afterward, I once looked at the freshly delivered contraceptive brew and asked him with a mix of petulance and hope. The medicine is too bitter. The imperial physician said contraceptive brews are cold in nature, and drinking too much may make it difficult to conceive in the future. Could I not drink it anymore? Caden Xuanyuan's answer was a careless, mocking laugh. Fine, don't drink it. If you get pregnant, just abort it. He pulled me into his arms, now cold with distance, his fingers pressing against my lower abdomen as his icy eyes stared indifferently. A tribute maiden sent from the Baylor Kingdom is merely a tool for warming the bed. Did you think you were worthy of bearing my heir? A child tainted by lowly blood. I would never allow it to live. I remembered those words for years, never daring to overstep again. So, this is what it feels like to be the one who receives all his favor. All she had to do was pout and say it's too bitter, and she could avoid drinking the stomach, chilling contraceptive brew. Yet I never missed a dose. For 5 long years, Vivian Lynn and I crossed paths as she emerged from the bedchamber. The flush on her face hadn't faded, radiating a haughty allure like a meticulously cultivated rose. Meanwhile, I was pregnant, vomiting multiple times a day, my face sickly pale with a dull grayish tint, my body swollen all over. Vivian dismissed her maids, a triumphant, dazzling smile curling her lips as she leaned close to my ear and enunciated slowly. Has the king told you yet? Tomorrow, you'll be sent to the military brothel to reward the 3 armies. My face ashen, I endured the pain in my lower abdomen and stayed silent. Vivian was in high spirits, her smile radiant and captivating. You've been by the king's side for 5 years. I thought you'd be far more favored. Just for saying she disliked you monopolizing the king, he sent you to reward the 3 armies, making you the lowest of military prostitutes. You're nothing but a plaything, replaceable at any moment. The elixir of oblivion allowed me to listen to her calmly until she finished. Perhaps I'd long understood. Caden Xuanyuan saw me only as a bedmate. Every tribute maiden sent to him would meet this fate. Not a shred of pain, nor any tearing sorrow. A rose in my chest. Vivian Lynn deliberately stepped on my skirt, preventing my departure, and walked up to me. Truthfully, Mu Yen, I don't hate or despise you that much, but as fellow tribute maidens, we must compete for favor. Only if I gain it can my kingdom thrive. And Caden Xuanyuan refrained from invading and annexing it. I nodded numbly. All the way back, I clutched the small jade flute in my hand tightly. The one who gave me this flute once said he would someday defeat the armies of the Empire of Een and bring me home. No matter how far, he would come to protect me whenever I played its tune. I still remember him sitting on a white horse, a young general without the expected vigor, silently escorting me all the way, sending me from the Baylor Kingdom to the Empire of Een. He held his sword the entire journey, glancing at me several times with bloodshot eyes, tears dampening his lashes. If my family hadn't been executed, if I hadn't been chosen as a tribute maiden, I should have married him by now and already borne his children. The first night I served by Caden Xuanyuan's side, I clutched a small jade flute tightly in my hand. Caden Xuanyuan lazily draped his robes, gazing at my pale face, asking what I held in my hand. Enduring the pain throughout my body, I was dazed for a long time before saying it was something very important. Caden Xuanyuan's face turned cold and stern. He snatched the jade flute from my hand, crushed it, and casually tossed it under the bed. His hawk-like, ruthless eyes shot an icy glare, each word spoken with chilling clarity. Remember your status. A tribute maiden sent by the Baylor Kingdom for peace talks. You are allowed to possess nothing. The next day, Caden Xianyuan sent a chest of rewards. My service in bed, with all its delicate compliance, had pleased him, yet I still crawled on the floor, retrieving the shattered pieces of the jade flute from beneath the bed. Piece by piece, I slowly glued it back together. Before the army's reward ceremony, Vivian Lin suggested I dance atop the city tower. I was most skilled at being alluring. I'd worn far more revealing garments before, so surely I wouldn't mind. It would also liven the military atmosphere and boost the soldiers' morale. Caden Xianyuan agreed with just a glance in my direction. Barefoot, I danced on the cold stone tiles of the tower. Caden Xuanyuan's deep, inscrutable gaze remained fixed on me. Even as my toes were cut by the rough bricks, I didn't stop until the music ended. Standing at the tower's highest point, I raised the repaired jade flute to my lips. But after being shattered, the jade flute could no longer produce a sound. I gazed into the distance toward the Baylor Kingdom, a vast and desolate expanse. He wouldn't come, either. I turned to leap from the tower wall, but someone seized my wrist from behind with a death grip, yanking me back, pulling me into his unyielding embrace. In Caden Xuanyuan's dark eyes, panic could no longer be concealed. Mu Yen, you were sent by the Baylor Kingdom to please me. If you dare die, I will lead my army at once and reduce the Baylor Kingdom to ashes. His thin lips moved slightly, cold fury swirling in his gaze as his words struck my heart with brutal force. From the moment I became a tribute maiden, even the choice to die was no longer mine. Caden Xianyuan released his grip, throwing me to the ground. Vivian Lin lifted her skirts and rushed to his side. Your Majesty, don't be angry. Send her to the military brothel at once to reward the troops. Those soldiers have been waiting impatiently. I lay sprawled on the ground, my palms scraped raw and bleeding. Wave after wave of cramping pain seized my lower abdomen, yet my heart remained still, like stagnant water. Caden Xuanyuan's gaze locked fiercely onto me as he asked, Mu Yen, have you no plea to make of me? Plead with him? Why should I plead with him? Many things had slipped from my memory. In that moment, he questioned me. I scarcely recalled who he was. I stared blankly into Caden Xuanyuan's cold, dark eyes and shrank back in fear. My mind flashed to him leading iron cavalry, his sword stained with blood, slaughtering a city. Surprise flickered in Caden Xuanyuan's eyes as well. The way I had always looked at him was gentle, tender, even when he roughed me up in bed, leaving marks all over, or threatened to offer me as a reward to his 3 armies. I had never regarded him with such unfamiliar, fearful eyes. It was the look one gives a complete stranger who terrifies them. An inexplicable unease began to coil around him. He sensed that something was wrong, as if he were on the verge of losing something forever beyond retrieval. Caden Xuanyuan's expression cooled into indifference. If you've no words to beg of me, go reward the 3 armies. He watched coldly as I was taken to the military brothel camp. Vivian Lin leaned close to him. Your Majesty, Lady Mu has been by your side for 5 years, rewarding the entire army with her. So many men. How filthy. Won't your Majesty feel heartache? She asked in a soft, coaxing voice. Caden Xuanyuan's flat, emotionless voice replied, a tribute maiden. Is she worth heartache? I gazed at him in a daze, feeling neither joy nor sorrow. After being pushed into the military brothel camp, countless soldiers lined up outside the tent, yet not a single one entered. One who couldn't resist lifted the tent flap, saw my legs exposed beneath the thin gauze, his eyes burning with desire. Rubbing his hands, he lunged in, only to be dragged out by the camp officer. The king's orders. No one is to lay a hand on this woman. Sending her here. The king is just angry. A woman who stayed by his side for 5 years. How could she truly be thrown to the military brothel? Suddenly, Vivian Lin's voice rang out beyond the tent. The king said this woman is free for all to play with. He doesn't care if she lives or dies. Everyone knew Vivian Lin was currently the most favored person by Caden Xuanyuan's side. The first man charged in. He roughly tore at my clothes, and in an instant, my flimsy silk dress was shredded to pieces. Then, he forcefully pushed me down and pressed himself on top of me. My stomach ached unbearably. My face was deathly pale. Cold sweat fell like raindrops, and my fingers curled as I clawed at the ground. A great deal of blood flowed out from beneath me. I forgot who the king was, forgot who had sent me to this place. War drums sounded outside, and the man on top of me hurriedly got up in a panic. Enemy forces are attacking. The Baylor Kingdom has struck. A man in silver armor lifted the tent flap of the military brothel. He was like a clear, gentle moonlight shining into the abyss. Liam Chun, I murmured through the pain, calling his name in disbelief. My little general. He had finally come to the Empire of Een to take me home. Seeing the blood beneath me, Liam Chun knelt down, trembling hands cradling me in his embrace, scalding tears dripping onto my icy neck. He draped his cloak over me, voice choked with restraint. Yen Yen, I've secured Goshawk Pass. I can take you back to the Baylor Kingdom now. We'll return and wed. In Liam Chen's arms, I drifted into a long, deep dream. In the dream, the Mu family wasn't ordered to be executed for advocating war against the Empire of Een, nor were their bodies hung from the city gates. I wasn't chosen to be sent here as a tribute maiden. Liam Chen didn't abandon scholarship for the sword, becoming a battle-hardened general forced to escort me to the Empire of Een, to become another man's plaything. We married, and on our wedding night, we shared the pear blossom wine we'd buried years ago. Liam Chen leaned down, his kiss gentle and tender. We had many children and grew old together. When I awoke, my abdomen still throbbed with waves of cramping pain. Reaching up to touch the corner of my eye, my fingers met with a warm wetness. Liam Chen stayed by my side, holding my hand, the scent of medicine still lingering in the room. He gently wiped the sweat from my damp hair, his fingertips trembling slightly. He said, Yen Yen, you were carrying Caden Xuanyuan's child. The child is gone now. He's a beast. You were pregnant with his child. Yet he threw you into the military brothel. If I had arrived just a moment later, Liam Chen trembled from head to toe. A trace of crimson seeped from the corner of his lips. His elegantly handsome face, now radiating murderous intent. Tears streamed endlessly down my face. How strange. My heart didn't ache. I felt no sorrow. So why were these tears falling? I wanted to ask him who Caden Xinyuan was. But no matter how I searched my memories, I couldn't recall him. He must not have been important. Caden Xinyuan sat through the entire night, until the moon hung high by the window frame. He quietly reviewed memorials. The ink in his inkstone long dried, the pages untouched for what felt like an eternity, fingers pressed against his brow. He couldn't understand why he felt so unsettled. The palace was filled with traces of her presence. Had he not sent her to the military brothel, that woman would still be tempting him in every corner of these halls. Even while he reviewed memorials, she would daringly lift her skirts and settle onto his lap, her soft lips peppering delicate kisses along his neck, leaving behind a trail of damp traces. At first, he remained unmoved, but eventually, he could no longer resist and pinned her against the bookshelf. Even as they tangled together, he maintained a cold detachment, watching her face with scornful rationality as he mocked. Are all women of the Baylor Kingdom as seductive and alluring as you? Have you no sense of shame? Her clear eyes would widen, glistening with unshed tears. Yet she still forced a bewitching smile for him. At such moments, he would thrust harder, more ruthlessly, without an ounce of tenderness, until her enchanting, alluring smile shattered into pained, faintly furrowed brows. He disliked her smile like that, as if she held not a shred of sincerity toward him. Too accustomed to it, Caden Xianyuan warned himself not to sink deeper. She was merely a tribute maiden sent by the Baylor kingdom to appease him after their defeat. Just a plaything, he murmured the warning to himself over and over. And he would eventually lead his troops to crush the Baylor kingdom and unify the realm. He couldn't be held back by a woman. Vivian Lin was the poison he had chosen to counteract another poison. He made Vivian Lin cry out on purpose, but never laid a hand on her, leaving Mu Yen outside to listen. But why did she show no reaction at all? The discovery clenched his heart, twisting it with something close to pain. Fury, panic, and helplessness flooded his heart in an instant. How absurd that he, a ruler of a nation, could be so emotionally swayed by a tribute maiden, sending her to the lowest ranking military brothel was Caden Xuanyuan's way of proving she meant nothing to him. Dawn was approaching. Mu Yen had spent the night in the military brothel. He too sat silently behind his desk throughout the night. After all this time, would she be frightened? Why hasn't she come to beg for mercy yet? His hand trembled slightly, leaving a long ink stain across the memorial. Vivian Lin wrapped her arms around his broad shoulders from behind, her voice coquettish and full of grievance. This humble one holds undying devotion for the king. I was foolish before, but now I wish to serve the king. Vivian Lin crouched down like a kitten, her crimson fingertips reaching to undo his python patterned belt. Caden Shenyuan pressed down on her shoulder. The pain drained the color from her face. Get out, he spat the single word, pushing her away without a second glance. War drums suddenly sounded from the military camp. The adjutant rushed in to report, Your Majesty, the Baylor Kingdom has launched a night raid on our camp. They've killed many of our men. Bracing himself against the desk, his first question was, Where is she? The adjutant replied with trembling fear, Lady Mu, she has miscarried. Vivian Lin tried to stop him. Your Majesty, don't go. She was brazen enough to get pregnant, was toyed with until she miscarried. She's so filthy, she'll only dirty your eyes. Caden Xuanyuan's vision went dark. It took a long moment for him to process what Vivian Lin had said. A sharp, panicked pain tore through his chest, as if a hole had been ripped open. It hurt so much he couldn't straighten up. Caden Shenyuan drew his sword. Its cold gleam nearly severed Vivian Lin's entire hand at the wrist. Vivian Lin grew frantic with fear. She couldn't understand. The king had doted on her so before, even sending Mu Yen to reward the 3 armies for her sake. Mu Yen had trampled the king's taboo by secretly conceiving a child. She thought the king wouldn't care at all. Caden Shenyuan strode out of the palace. As he crossed the threshold, he stumbled and half knelt, his fingers pale as he pressed them against his chest. His adjutant hurriedly supported him. Your Majesty, what's wrong? Should I summon the royal physician? The king appeared to be suffering a heart attack, but he knew well that this monarch, who could annihilate a nation in the blink of an eye, was colder and more rational than anyone. How could he be so unsteady on his feet? All for a mere tribute maiden. Caden Shenyuan stood at the entrance of the military camp. The flimsy tent flap swayed lightly in the wind, yet he remained there for a long time, his hands seemingly too heavy to lift, unable to bring himself to push it aside. Caden stood like a cold, oppressive stone monument before the tent, and not a single soldier nearby dared to urge or remind him, until, slowly, his fingers closed around the flap and lifted it. What met his eyes was crimson blood. The entire bed was soaked through with it. Even though she had been taken away by the people of the Baylor Kingdom, the air still hung thick with the lingering scent of blood. That blood was like red, hot needles, piercing his eyes and stabbing straight through his heart. They had shared a child. She had carefully hidden it from him for so long, yet he personally sent her to the military brothel and destroyed it. When Caden Shenyuan emerged from the military brothel, his face showed little expression, but it was drained of color, his eyes a deep black that dared not be met. A closer look would reveal a landscape of corpses and seas of blood. The adjutant breathed a sigh of relief. With so many tribute maidens in the king's harem, there would always be children if he desired. Caden Xuanyuan's voice was icy, devoid of emotion or warmth, like the stagnant Dead Sea. I only sent her to the military brothel. I didn't allow anyone to touch her. Kill everyone who has entered the military brothel." 2 soldiers knelt on the ground, pleading desperately, "Your Majesty." It was Lady Lin by your side who said that woman was fair game. If she hadn't conveyed your decree, how would we dare approach her even half a step? Caden Xuanyuan's steps halted heavily, his hand clutching his chest, his knuckles clenched as if to crush everything. Yet he couldn't withstand the pain spreading from his heart to every limb and bone. It tore apart all his reason. "Your Majesty." The adjutant rushed to support him in alarm. Caden Xuanyuan waved his hand away, his voice hoarse and strained. "I'm fine. Bring Vivian Lin to me." When Vivian Lin was brought into the great hall, Caden Xuanyuan sat, not lifting his gaze, wiping his sword. Vivian Lin forced out tears, panicked and fearful. "Your Majesty, this humble consort knows not what wrong I have committed." The man who once doted on her raised his exquisitely carved features, lifting cold, indifferent eyelids to gaze at her, not a trace of emotion in his eyes. "Was it you who let them into the tent to harm Muyen? Who gave you the audacity?" The sword's edge pressed against Vivian Lin's throat, tears stinging her eyes until the sockets darkened crimson. Blood trickled down Vivian Lin's pale neck. The searing pain at her throat made her panic briefly. Then she lifted her face. Adopting the wild demeanor Caden Xuanyuan had once favored most, she pursed her lips and said righteously, "Your Majesty sent her to the military brothel camp for my sake. Doesn't that mean she's at my disposal? You promised to let her reward the 3 armies. How could we not allow the men to enter? Since your Majesty no longer likes or cares about her, why not let her serve her final purpose and help relieve the soldiers' tensions?" "I've only been thinking of your Majesty." Vivian Lin deliberately pressed her neck against the edge of his sword. Everyone in the harem knew she was the one Caden Xuanyuan had exceptionally doted on. How could he truly punish her for the sake of Muyen? "The child in her womb carries lily blood. I was only helping your Majesty rid yourself of trouble." Caden Xuanyuan withdrew his sword, a faint, inscrutable smile curling at the corner of his lips. Vivian Lin felt secretly pleased but deliberately added, "If your Majesty thinks I've done wrong, I'll offer my own life in exchange for the child in Muyen's belly." As she spoke, she rushed toward one of the palace pillars as if to collide with it. Caden Xuanyuan's voice cut through, icy and sharp, "Stop her." Vivian Lin was stopped, a barely concealed smile tugging at her lips as she feigned innocence. "Your Majesty despises me for accidentally causing Muyen's child's death. Let me be buried with it." Caden Xuanyuan lifted her chin with the icy edge of his sword, his voice utterly merciless. "You deserve to be buried with our child. But dying like this is too lenient for you. Drag her away, send her to the leopard den." The leopard den was where Caden Xuanyuan kept his ferocious beasts. Vivian trembled uncontrollably, disbelief in her eyes. "Your Majesty, what are you saying? That, such a place. How can you send me there?" Panic seized her. She lunged forward, desperate to clutch at Caden Xuanyuan's robe. He flicked the fabric away, his gaze icy with revulsion, not even allowing her to touch him. "Have you forgotten, your Majesty? Those nights you filled the sky with fireworks for me, spoiling me so. Even Muyen could only watch from her palace like a sewer rat hiding in the shadows." Her words struck his heart like a heavy blow, stealing the breath from his lungs. Caden Xuanyuan slowly recalled that over the past 5 years, he had never shown Muyen any affection. He repeatedly reminded her to know her place and not harbor any delusions. She had once timidly and humbly begged him to spare her homeland, the Baylor Kingdom. He had given a resolute refusal without hesitation. If he had agreed back then, would they have avoided this outcome? Could the child have been saved? The pain in his chest did not ease. The veins coiled around his heart seemed to burst apart. Every breath became a struggle. He could no longer sit still. He had to do something to alleviate the bone. Deep agony. Take her away. Caden Xuanyuan walked past her without looking back. Tossing out these words, Vivian Lin's cries grew fainter in the distance. Caden Xianyuan mounted his horse. Even when his adjutant stood in his way, it could not deter his resolve. The black steed charged forth like a bolt of lightning. A cold wind brushed past Caden Xianyuan's stern, chiseled profile. She was his, since the Baylor kingdom abandoned her and sent her to his side. Her life, her joys, and sorrows could belong to him alone. Caden Xianyuan tightened the reins in his hand, his knuckles cracking. He must bring her back. After leaving the capital of the Empire of Yin, Liam Chen switched carriages and took me northward. The farthest north lay the Baylor kingdom. I had been worried earlier, but once no Yin soldiers pursued us, I finally relaxed. Caden Xianyuan had so many tribute maidens. Every year, envoys brought beauties to offer him, seeking a sliver of stability for their small kingdoms. Tribute maidens were the cheapest of trinkets, whether they lived or died, or were left to wither in some forgotten palace. Caden Xianyuan never cared. Losing one woman he had grown tired of after 5 years must be an insignificant matter. Truthfully, I no longer remember Caden Xianyuan. Some of these things were told to me by Liam Chen, while others I pieced together myself. If I had held even the slightest importance to him, he should never have sent me, pregnant with his child, to the military camp to serve the entire army. I suppose Caden Xianyuan despised me so deeply that he used this method to force me to lose the child and teach me a harsh lesson. That lesson was brutally effective. I became terrified of him, even after forgetting his face. I'd wake in panic from dreams of a distant silhouette, my face wet with tears. After the miscarriage, my health never fully recovered. The further north we traveled, the colder it grew. I bundled in thick fox furs, my gaunt face peeking out from the snow, white fur. Most of the time, I drifted in and out of sleep, dreaming that the next time I opened my eyes, I'd see the high gates of the Baylor kingdom. Then, I would never be captured and taken back again. As my periods of sleep grew longer and more frequent, Liam Chen's gaze, when he looked at me, became increasingly urgent and heartbroken. He would enter the carriage, wake me gently, and hold me while we talked. He reminisced about the old Mu family days, how he climbed walls to fetch my kite. Mother and father said they'd wed me to him once I grew up. He also mentioned how the new emperor values him highly now. The emperor prioritizes military strength, has grand ambitions, and won't yield to the Empire of Yin by sending women as tributes. As I drifted back to sleep, a smile touched my lips. Yen yen. A few new swallows are chirping beneath the eaves of the Chen household. When they return next spring, we'll marry. I touched my belly, now flat again. The physical pain had faded, yet an ache remained, indescribable, burning behind my eyes. After a long silence, I whispered one word, yes. Mother's final wish was to see me marry Liam Chen, find a home, and fill it with children. After wandering full circle, I could finally fulfill her dream. This time, in my dreams, I saw Mother. She wasn't hanging from the city tower, but sitting by the bedside, her palm warm and gentle as she stroked my forehead. In the dream, I felt so wronged, clutching my mother's hand to complain. Mother, the contraceptive brew is so bitter, so terribly bitter. I never want to drink it again. Back in the Baylor kingdom, before Caden Xianyuan's army breached the city walls, I was cherished by my parents like a treasure. Whenever I felt ill and had to take medicine, Mother would coax me for ages, even going to the southern city to buy the sweetest candied fruits for me. That man treated me so cruelly. He was always harsh with me, and my body ached so much I could barely walk. The palace maids laughed mockingly, calling me a seductress, sneering at how the Mu family could raise such a shameless daughter. But only by pleasing him could I stop him from attacking the Baylor kingdom. Then Mother vanished. I woke to find Liam Chen holding me, trembling as he repeated, "We're not going back. Even if I die, I'll never send you to the Empire of Yin again." Yet Caden Xianyuan still pursued us. Liam Chen tensed up and shouted at me, "Yen yen, hide in the carriage and don't come out." I obediently hid inside. As I lowered the carriage curtain, I saw the figure seated on the black horse, towering, icy, handsome, like an unfeeling sculpture, appearing before me travel. worn and radiating murderous intent. His gaze upon me was crimson and scorching, bloodshot throughout. It felt hot enough to burn a hole right through the carriage curtain. The clashing of swords echoed outside, grating and chilling to the bone. Caden Xianyuan spoke with cold arrogance. "You are no match for me. I only want to take her back." Liam Chen seemed injured, his voice trembling slightly, yet unwavering. "Don't even think about it. Yan Yan was originally my betrothed. I won't yield her again, if not for the Empire of Yin shamelessly demanding tribute. How would she have been sent to your side and suffered so much?" "Your betrothed?" Caden Xuanyuan's voice dripped with contempt. "She stayed by my side for 5 years. We even had a child together." Liam Chen's words cut like ice. "How dare you mention the child? What did you do to Mu Yan after she became pregnant? You monster." After a long silence, he rasped, "I didn't know she was pregnant when I sent her to the military brothel. After bringing her back, I'll make her my consort and compensate her. If she wants a child, I'll give her one. In your dreams, you'll take her only over my dead body." I lifted the carriage curtain and stepped in front of Liam Chen. Just as Caden Xianyuan was about to strike, he abruptly changed direction. I took Liam Chen's sword and plunged it into his chest, watching the blade sink deep. Warm blood dripped onto my palm. My fingers trembled slightly, as if scalded by molten lava. Mu Yan, his eyes burned crimson, shattered by despair and shock, as wet tears mixed with blood fell onto my wrist. I released the sword hilt, but he gripped it desperately. "Mu Yan, come back with me." "No, I refuse." I had forgotten all memories of him, yet at first sight, an inexplicable fear still seized me. Tears fell from Caden Xuanyuan's eyes, filled with anguish. Sudden, urgent hoofbeats sounded from behind. Liam Chen warned me, "Yan Yan, hide quickly. The Empire of Yin's troops are chasing us." Arrows rained densely toward our direction. Caden Xianyuan pulled the sword from his chest and pulled me into his embrace. Scorching blood soaked through my back. "Why?" My eyes were blank, unable to recall anything about him. Caden Xianyuan let out a pained, hoarse chuckle by my ear. "Mu Yan, however much blood you shed, I will return it all to you." The Empire of Yin's arrows grew denser, forcing us to the edge of the cliff. Caden Xianyuan held me tightly, not letting go even as an arrow struck his shoulder and blood trickled from his lips. The unconscious Caden Xianyuan slumped his full weight upon me. Together, we plunged off the cliff. When I awoke, I found the two of us lying on a simple wooden plank bed, with Caden Xianyuan asleep beside me. The hunter brought in a bowl of medicinal soup. "Young lady, you're awake? You fell from the cliff. I found you while hunting and carried you back. You only hit your head, but your husband is more seriously injured. A stab wound to the chest and an arrow in the shoulder. It's a miracle he survived. When I found you, he was still clutching you tightly, using his own body to cushion your fall." I gazed at the unconscious Caden Xianyuan beside me with mixed emotions. In sleep, his cold, profound eyes were hidden, his long lashes resting quietly, casting a small, tranquil shadow, perhaps troubled by a nightmare. His thin lips were slightly pursed. This face was strikingly handsome, every feature perfectly cold and flawless, which was why many tribute maidens willingly stayed by his side, hoping for even a single night of favor. But none of that concerned me. I said coldly, "You're mistaken. I don't know him, and he is not my husband." Just then, Caden Xianyuan woke, his eyes fluttering open. I rose to leave, but Caden Xianyuan gripped my hand tightly. His voice emerged, hoarse and strained. "Where are you going?" "To find General Chen, of course, and have him take me back to the Baylor Kingdom," I replied frankly, meeting his shadowed gaze without concealment. "Don't go. Don't look for him." He seized my wrist, pulling me forcefully toward him, not caring that his freshly bandaged wounds had begun to bleed again. Fear surged through me. The man before me overlapped with the one from my nightmares. Tears streaming, I screamed uncontrollably, "Let me go. I don't know you." "You don't know me?" He froze, disappointment and sorrow etching across his usually expressionless face. "You remember Liam Chen. But you've forgotten me? 5 years of days and nights. I know even your favorite positions, which spots you can't stand to be touched. We tried them all, on the palace bed, by the hot spring, on the desk, even in the grand hall, before all the ministers. You could still seduce me, he sneered bitterly, trying to draw a line now. Don't you think it's a bit late? The hunter in the room had slipped out at some point, leaving just the two of us. My whole body trembled, blood rushing to my head. A slap landed on his pale, tense cheek. Get out, I screamed through blurred, tear-filled eyes. Not a single word he said could be true. The Mu family was full of loyal heroes. My mother personally taught me to read and understand propriety. The slightest mistake would earn me a stern look and strikes on my palm. It was precisely because the Mu family advocated resisting the enemy and declaring war on the Empire of Yin that the foolish emperor grew resentful and ordered our entire family executed. I carried the blood of a century of integrity. I could never do such things. 5 years. How did I become so unrecognizable, even to myself? After 5 years by his side, my entire body trembled uncontrollably. Caden Shenyuan pinned my wrists against the bedside, his solid waist pressing against me. In this humiliating position, I closed my eyes and fought back tears. All I could think was, why didn't that high cliff finish him off? He bit my neck from behind, his teeth cold, his kisses scalding. Perhaps everything he said was true. This body knew him too well. It trembled involuntarily, yearning to yield into compliance, as if surrendering would somehow lessen the pain. My tears fell even harder, choking back sobs. I bit my lip until blood tinged my mouth. In a daze, I wondered, what depths of humiliation did I endure those 5 years to become like this? At least it's all forgotten now. All forgotten. Caden Xuanyuan's gaze was complex, his deep eyes fixed on the tears on my face before he finally released me and left the room. That evening, an extra person appeared in the hunter's courtyard. Caden Shenyuan stood bathed in cold moonlight, his eyes as icy and frost, laden as the light itself. He stared down at the kneeling figure, his voice hoarse as he demanded, "Why has she forgotten me? It doesn't seem feigned. Did you give her something?" The alchemist, kneeling on the ground, trembled as he spoke. Lady Mu asked this humble official for an elixir of oblivion. She said the king was aware that the king intended to send her to reward the 3 armies, which is why she wished to forget his majesty. His voice grew low, like moonlight being crushed underfoot. When did I ever say I wanted her to forget me? Caden Shenyuan clutched his chest as agony surged through him once more. The pain was fiercer, more overwhelming than any battlefield wound he had ever endured, leaving him utterly defenseless. The antidote. Caden Shenyuan extended his hand toward him, coldly uttering 2 words. The alchemist shook his head in dazed fear. "Your Majesty, the elixir of oblivion has no antidote," this humble official asked her. Beauty Mu said she wouldn't regret it, that she wanted to forget the king forever. The air pressure grew heavy and stifling. Even those around found it hard to breathe. To forget him forever. Those words struck like an arrow, piercing straight through his heart, leaving him unsteady on his feet. I said antidote. He refused to believe it, eyes reddening as he gripped the alchemist's throat. The alchemist gasped with difficulty. "There is none, Your Majesty, truly none. Once Beauty Mu took it. If she wished to forget you, she would never remember again, even unto death. But there is another method, though it may harm Your Majesty's imperial body." This humble official dare not attempt it. Daybreak had just arrived. I was brought to another room in the hunter's house. On the table lay a porcelain bowl and a dagger gleaming coldly. Caden Shenyuan sat not far away. His wounds had not yet healed, his torso bare, revealing a lean and muscular waist and abdomen with thick bandages wrapped around his chest and back. His dark, bluish eyelashes lowered, concealing all emotion in his eyes. "What exactly do you want from me by calling me here?" I suppressed my unease and confronted him. Caden Shenyuan said nothing, merely lowering his gaze to toy with the dagger in his hand. It was his personal shadow guard who spoke from the side. "Lady Mu, apologies for the offense." He raised the dagger. Panic surged within me. my voice trembling. What are you going to do? Caden Shenyuan, haven't you tormented me enough? His fingers paused, pressing down on the dagger. He spoke only softly. Proceed. The dagger sliced open my wrist, and blood began to flow, soon filling a porcelain bowl. Dizziness washed over me, and I sneered. This time, is it for Vivian Lin again? Is she ill and needs my blood for medicine? Caden Shenyuan. I smiled weakly, gazing at him. You have so many tribute maidens by your side. Why is it always me? I forgot Caden Shenyuan and lost some memories about Vivian Lin too. I only vaguely remember that she was deeply favored. After arriving in the Empire of Yin, no one ever remembered my birthday again, nor did anyone cook me a bowl of longevity noodles to wish me a long life. But that night was my birthday. I stood in the palace, craning my neck until it ached, watching stolen fireworks. It seemed he had set them off for Vivian Lin. Caden Shenyuan clenched his fingers, suppressing their slight tremble. He instinctively wanted to deny it, but meeting my mocking eyes, his heart wrenched with pain again, he averted his gaze and whispered, "So what if it was? You're a peace offering from the Baylor kingdom to me. Whether you live or die is mine to decide. I haven't even settled your escape attempt yet. If you don't want that Baylor General Chen to die, obediently let your blood flow." The sharp pain in my wrist strangely connected to an ache in my heart. I lost consciousness by the end of the bloodletting. Faintly, I heard him speaking to the alchemist. "Draw my heart's blood." "Your Majesty." The alchemist attempted to dissuade him. "Silence. Only by drawing her blood can we counteract the elixir of oblivion. Only my heart's blood can restore her memories." Every day, I was brought here for bloodletting. Caden Xuanyuan's complexion grew increasingly pale, even his lips losing their color. The alchemist stood by, anxious and hesitant. "Your Majesty, you mustn't continue this." Yet he asked, "How much longer until she recovers?" Recalling the voices I'd heard while unconscious, I smiled bitterly. It had indeed been just a dream. He was drawing my blood solely to cure Vivian Lin. After a long hesitation, the alchemist replied, 10 more days. Then proceed with the bloodletting." As the 10th day drew nearer, fragments of memories began surfacing in my mind. A tribute maiden who shattered a teacup was dragged away and had both hands severed. We tribute maidens, offered from various nations to please Caden Shenyuan, were the most disposable of all. Caden Shenyuan often strode through the palace gates clad in blood-stained armor, his expression as impassive as a god of slaughter. In his eyes, all who refused submission were mere ants. This included the stubborn minor kingdoms, and us tribute maidens as well. Thus, I learned to bow in obedience. I wanted to live, though I scarcely knew why I clung to life. Perhaps it was the hope of one day seeing the Baylor kingdom's cavalry reclaim lost lands and tread upon the soil of the Empire of Yin. At night, in the military camp, soldiers of the Empire of Yin returning from battle freely picked women for their pleasure. I would slip into Caden Xuanyuan's tent, my trembling body pressing against his cold, hard armor until my delicate skin chafed red. Yet I never stopped. I shook my head desperately, trying to force these memories away, fingers tearing at strands of my long hair. I hugged myself tightly, sobbing repeatedly. "Don't remember. Don't let me recall it all. I must forget." The final day, 10 days ago, Liam Chen found me at the base of the cliff, bringing with him the elite forces of the Baylor Kingdom. He gripped my hand tightly, his eyes shining as brightly as stars. "Don't be afraid. Mu Yen will soon return to the Baylor Kingdom." Liam Chen pulled me onto the horse. Hooves shattered the moonlight as we weaved through the morning mist beneath the cliff. But soon, Caden Shenyuan and his men caught up with us. He controlled the reins with one hand while clutching his chest with the other. A patch of blood stained the pure white bandage. Caden Shenyuan was injured, his voice sounding unusually deep and hoarse. He called out to me again and again, "Mu Yen, come back." Liam Chun and I couldn't ride fast enough. Just as Caden Shenyuan was about to catch up, I drew my bow and aimed at him. His dark pupils reflected my image, trembling violently. "Mu Yen, are you going to kill me? You still haven't remembered anything, have you?" I drew the bowstring taut. Caden Shenuan, we are enemies, eternal enemies. You deserve to die. Only with your death will Baylor survive, and our people be spared from slaughter. My mind was consumed with the thought of his demise. Why did my bowhand hesitate to release? Just as he gripped the reins with one hand and tried to pull me back into his embrace with the other, that arrow left the string and struck true, right through his heart. I watched him fall from his horse, tumbling into the billowing dust. I returned to Baylor with Liam Chun. The Mu estate lay in ruins, its crumbling walls overgrown with mourning glories. Liam Chun accompanied me to pay respects to my father and mother. Under the eaves of the Chun residence, swallows came and went, their cheerful chirps filling the little mud nests. He prepared the most beautiful wedding gown and bought pine nut candies. Unwrapping the candy, the sweetness spread from my tongue to my stomach, a sweetness I had never tasted during my entire time in the Empire of Een. On our wedding day, as I sat on the bed strewn with peanuts and longans, I seemed to hear the distant tolling of funeral bells from the Empire of Een. Dozens of days of national mourning. That undefeated emperor was finally dead. He had no empress, nor any heirs. Buried with him in the same coffin were only a blood-stained skirt and a small wooden figurine, carved into the likeness of a woman he could never reclaim. Her smile was enchantingly beautiful, yet her eyes held no joy, only hidden tears glistening beneath. As the wedding attendant lowered my bridal veil, a scalding drop fell onto the back of my hand. I wiped it away slowly, but firmly. Truth be told, I had remembered everything the moment I shot that arrow at him, but remembering did not mean forgiving. For the enmity of a fallen nation and a shattered family, there is no room for forgiveness. Two people separated by too many barriers are like stars on opposite banks of the Milky Way, destined only to gaze across the vast divide. In the next life, Caden Shenuan, let us never meet again.